joining me for all the chat. It's Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor. I think you're quite enjoying this week, Claire.
I don't know why you would suggest that.
Here's the thing.
So much fun.
The world is divided into people, largely, I would say largely, there's a small subset, and we're going to be talking to one of those people in about half an hour's time. But the world is divided into people who don't really have an opinion on Peter Mandelson and people who've met him and hate him. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And we've got Adam Bolton, who used to be political editor at Sky, who considers, always considers Mandelson to be a friend, and is still speaking really very highly of him. And some people, you know, seem to like him. I'm always bemused by this. Utterly charming, manipulative, all the things that he says that Jeffrey Epstein was. But Jeffrey Epstein's tentacles are everywhere. We haven't seen all these Epstein files yet. Apparently, you know, there's 3 million documents. No one's even gone through all of them yet and put it all together. Because you have to know stuff to know whether a document is relevant. So it's, you know, you have to piece it all together over the years. But what's come out so far, both involving Mandelson and Prince Andrew as was and Sarah Ferguson, damning for both. Let's start with Mandelson, because yesterday he apparently retired from the Lords. He was going to be booted out. He can still call himself a Lord. I mean, got to be honest, who cares? This is just not something that bothers me from day to day. You can put your ermine cloak on at home and prance around in your tighty-whities pants if you want to, Petey. I don't care, as long as you're not in public life. But you're probably not going to be able to do it behind bars. Criminal investigation by the police over these Epstein emails. Part of this actually is also coming from his former boss, Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister, who has made it very clear. He wrote to the Cabinet Office in September, Cabinet Secretary, saying, look, there's evidence that's come out already in what we've seen in the Epstein files, suggesting Peter Mandelson was leaking sensitive information. We now know about, you know, bailout of banks and goodness knows what. Highly sensitive information. It could be insider trading, it could be, you know, breach of the Official Secrets Act, misconduct in public office, you name it. There's some serious crimes that are being alleged here. And he says he was told by the Cabinet Secretary, no, that they have no record of any emails or anything. That might come back to haunt the Cabinet Secretary, the most senior politician in the country. That's Sir Chris Wormold.
Yeah, and I think it does highlight the fact that the reason they're saying that is because allegedly Peter Mandelson has been sending all of the emails via his personal email account, not a government email account. Now,
but those emails had to have gone from his work email to his private email.
Well, that's
you have to forward them, don't you?
That's what you would think. There's some rumour going about that they were sent directly to his private email anyway, and bypassing the official government email. I don't know how true that is, but I think it shows that the Cabinet Office guidelines when it comes to using private technology and private email accounts isn't fit for purpose.
Well, we're back to Hillary Clinton and her emails, but of course then all the Trump people, the Trump kids were all basically doing exactly the same as they'd accused Hillary Clinton of.
Well, this is it.
Yeah, well, there's obviously a security issue here, isn't there? But look, I mean, again, Peter Mandelson either can't recall anything, he's got no recollection of things, or he hasn't spoken out. He's gone remarkably quiet in the last 24 hours.
I find it absolutely outstanding that he couldn't remember receiving a payment of, what was it, $75,000?
Yeah, this is the...
Yeah, I would notice if that money had hit my account.
I think that was, again, that was one of the little pinpoint moments that was very telling. And the casual way, and it's the same with Andrew and Fergie, this casual way, will you cover my business class flights and fly me to here and fly me to... This, again, rich people taking more freebies from other people who are richer than them. They're just tacky money grubbers. Peter Mandelson was earning a very good sum of money by that point. He'd bought that home in Notting Hill, which then probably trebled and quadrupled, God knows what, in value. He'd earned 180 grand plus expenses and everything when he was a trade commissioner for the EU for 4 years. He'd been a cabinet minister. I mean, he's earned good, solid money for a long time and had a property that massively appreciated value. And yet he appears to have many more millions than perhaps. Put it this way, he's fantastic at investing. Yes. The man has had the most amazing ISAs compared to the rest of us. They've been paying out amazing interest rates. I think there's going to need to be investigation into an awful lot here. Yeah. But Gordon Brown accusing Number 10 of a Mandelson cover-up. That's, you know, later stuff emerging that he was basically, while he was Business Secretary, and to all intents and purposes, Deputy Prime Minister. He was, you know, right-hand man to Gordon Brown, even though they previously hated each other when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. Gordon Brown thought he needed to have Mandelson in office with him, and especially around the time of this financial crisis that happened in 2008, 9, 10. that basically he was trying to get Gordon Brown out. Bye-bye Smelly. It was one of the email exchanges with Epstein. Today, now you'll be able to explain this better than most, I think. Someone who works, you work in Parliament for the Deputy Speaker,
Yeah.
So the Tories have tabled what's called a humble address to the Commons, and this is about trying to get all the documents relating to Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador published. And this is basically about what did the Prime Minister and his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who was one of Mandelson's protégés, they're everywhere. It's like they're breeding. What did they know at the time when they appointed him, and what vetting was done? We know it wasn't all done before he was appointed. So what does this humble address mean? How does it work?
OK, so it's a piece of parliamentary procedure which is not used that often. It's normally in response to the King's speech when they do the state opening of Parliament. And it's essentially a direct call from the House of Commons, normally the opposition party, to the monarch to instruct the department to release all of the documents. So it's a call for papers is what they call it.
Right.
And it's quite wide-ranging.
So almost sort of go above the government.
Go above the government. And you say to the King, you make them release everything that we want. That's it in a nutshell. Now, the government have come back. It's quite a broad piece of legislation that's been put down by the Conservative Party. It covers absolutely everything. Electronic communications, payments, emails, text messages.
Minutes from any meeting.
Absolutely
anything that was done in relation to Peter Mandelson and any conversations with any senior staff and the Prime Minister.
Absolutely. And special advisors, more importantly. So they've increased the scope of it. The government have come back with a small amendment to it. They've accepted the face of the bill.
And the reason they've done that is because despite having 400 odd MPs, they don't believe that actually the anger on the backbenches about this is so huge, and anger against Keir Starmer genuinely is so huge, they cannot be sure that they would be able to basically defeat the Tory amendment.
Exactly.
So the Tory vote.
So their amendment.
That's quite something.
It is, when you've got a major majority like that and you're only sub 2 years into a government, to have that kind of level of worry.
You're into kind of vote of confidence territories then.
Well, I think you are. I mean, the amendment is so adding except papers prejudicial to UK national security or international relations.
Yeah.
That's open to interpretation.
It's very open to interpretation. They can pretty much not release anything. That's like releasing a whole load of documents and everything is blacked out, isn't it?
It is.
The interesting thing about this, Keir Starmer will absolutely hate that the Tories have done this.
Yes.
Because he'll think it's a terrible sort of like thing for them. It's just outrageous them to use this particular mode of getting information. Of course, the person who has most used this in recent years, you'll never guess who. It was this guy who was shadow Brexit secretary who was trying to stop the Brexit referendum being enacted. And what was his name, Claire?
Was it Keir Starmer?
Yes. It was Keir Starmer. So the irony. Right back at you, lad, right back at you. But again, the key thing is we've got PMQs today. Kemi Badenoch is going to come out fighting on all of this, isn't she?
She is. But
absolutely,
I think this is almost a sideshow. She's going to be lining that up because if there are no urgent questions or statements, then the humble address will begin at 1 o'clock. So she's going to use this, I think, to play a little bit of mischief. So she might chuck him a few curveballs that he's not really expecting, because if he's prepped for that, she may not go entirely on it to save her powder.
It's very easy to put Keir Starmer on the back foot, though, generally on these things. I mean,
by saying good morning to him.
Yeah,
normally.
Exactly. Well, let's turn to... actually, I want to answer the question on this. You're welcome to put your calls out, as you know, on any topic at all, and in any aspect of this. But I would particularly like to know, should Keir Starmer publish everything he knew about Mandelson's links with Epstein when he appointed him as US ambassador? Because we know that it was already in public domain that they were friends. There'd been photographs of them. We knew they were friends. He hadn't denied that. And we knew that they'd been friends since Epstein had been convicted of trafficking a 14-year-old girl for sex prostitution. So what did they know? How much did they know? How much did they pretend not to know? Because when the Prime Minister, and I promise you today at some point, he's going to say, as we're tweeting on his behalf, as Health Secretary said this morning in interviews, the people we really need to be thinking about are the victims, the women and girls who were trafficked for sex and abused. Well, yeah, but we should have been thinking about them when you appoint a man who to be the top job in the UK's top diplomatic job in the world as our ambassador to Washington. When you appoint someone who is his big mate, and didn't believe the charges even when he'd basically, to all intents and purposes, pleaded guilty and did a deal to be in open prison and just one charge involving, well, 2 charges involving only 1 girl. Pleaded himself down. But I mean, was the Prime Minister thinking of the women and girls then? I'm not sure he was. So I want to know, should Keir Starmer be forced to publish everything? What do you think we're going to find out? Do you think Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff, is going to last in his job? He's very much a protege of Peter Mandelson. Does any of this matter? I'd like to hear from you. We're getting lots of calls on this, but does any of this matter? Give us a call on 0344 499 1000. Text us on 87222. Get in touch with us on X at TalkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate a message. You could argue more or less about Prince Andrew. I don't really care where Prince Andrew, whether he has a title, whether he's an HRH. I'm not interested in any of that stuff anyway. I don't care where he lives. I just don't want him to be costing the taxpayer anything. He's been booted out of Royal Lodge. We knew that was going to happen. This sprawl, I mean, it's huge white mansion. The word lodge. It's a palace, for goodness sake. It's a massive house. And he's been booted out of that. Apparently, dead of night on Monday night, basically, the king was like, get the hell out. Take your wife with you, ex-wife with you. There are allegations that Epstein sent a second woman to the UK for sex with Andrew. They're looking into that. J.D. Vance, the US VP, has talked about Andrew testifying before Congress. Does it matter where Andrew lives? He's now gone off to the King's private estate, Sandringham. Yeah. So not in Windsor, which is public land. You could be seen driving around. It's private. No cameras there. It's in Norfolk. It's paid for by the King personally. I mean, the property is supposed to be in Wood Lodge, isn't ready yet. But either way, the property's in now, and the property's going to move in too, which is being renovated, are both beyond most people's wildest dreams for their home. So let's all stop the break. He's not living in a mud hut. But does it matter where he lives?
As long as it's not costing the taxpayer, no, I don't particularly care. I think it's good that he's out of Royal Lodge, and as it should be, because I don't want to be funding it. If the King wants to pay for it, that's entirely his own business. That's families. Yeah, and it is, and that's a decision for them. I mean, he's not going into a 2 up, 2 down, is he? So it's going to be
living better than most 72-year-olds.
Yeah, he is. He's going to have a nice life there. I think he's in an inordinate amount of trouble, and I wouldn't be surprised if he disappeared off overseas somewhere to go and deal with...
Dubai has been mentioned, hasn't it? Bye. Yeah. I mean, we could club together for the airfare because he hasn't got Epstein to pay for it. Fergie, take Fergie with you.
Andy.
As a mum, by the way, this is the thing, and Sarah Vine's written about this in the Mail today, and it's something I said on the show. That the first thing that struck me was that Sarah Ferguson taking... or messaging Epstein, by then a convicted convicted paedophile. So, I mean, soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. Really? And she took her girls, her 19 and 20-year-old girls as they were then, to him. She sent photos of them. I mean, let's be honest, they weren't his type, looking at the women that he was sexually abusing. But absolutely horrific. That she would just treat this all so casually. And you've got to wonder, I mean, I'm sorry, apparently they're a wonderfully close family and all very loving, but what are you doing taking your teenage daughter to meet with a man with that sort of conviction?
What are you doing even sending him text messages?
Marry me.
I just, when you have a kid, I never understood this until I had one. Yeah. The level of protection that you feel towards this tiny little helpless child. And mine's a strapping 6'2" lad. But I would absolutely lay in front of moving vehicles for him. I would never make him feel uncomfortable with the people that I spoke to. And if he did, I would listen to that, because he means more to me than any of these people ever would. And I don't understand why she doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, it's genuinely disturbing. Yeah. I think disturbing is the right word there. Do you think there's any chance that Andrew could possibly be facing any sort of charges? I have a funny feeling. We were discussing on the show yesterday, I mean, lots of people calling in, do you think there's going to be a proper investigation into all of this with Andrew or Peter Mandelson? do you think there'll be an establishment cover-up? Because I still think at the end of the day there will be an establishment cover-up. I still don't accept that, but at the very least the late Queen's most senior staff didn't know what Andrew was up to, didn't know where he was staying. We've had senior guests from Royal Protection, Di Davies and others, who absolutely say it would have gone up the chain of command. There's no way the Queen's principal private secretary wouldn't have known. Would she have known she was involved in paying off the 10 million quid? I know we've all got massive respect for her, but at the end of the day, she put the institution first. They always, that was her thing. That's what we admire her for. She put the institution first. It's always about the firm. But at that point, Prince Andrew, as he was then, testifying in a court case about whether or not he did or did not have sex with a trafficked 17-year-old victim of sex abuse, was not in the interests of the firm. So it was worth paying off. Of course, you know, he never met the woman, but the Queen contributed to that £10 million fund. We are reliably informed. What did she think it was for?
I don't know, and I think that's the most disturbing thing. Normally you can start piecing things together and make reasonable assumptions. In this case, I just can't. I just don't know what she thought it was going to achieve. Did she just think it was all going to go away? You know, it's one of those.
That was not
questions.
10 million quid well spent, was it?
No, it wasn't. And she must have known that wasn't going to be the end of it, surely, given the history that he has.
She should have asked her start. Again, I'm not beating down her, because, you know, she was an elderly woman. She was, I think was she by that time already widowed? I think.
Yes,
and
I think
you
she
know,
was,
there's a lot going on there. But I mean, again, favourite son. We know, you know, mums are like about their sons and daughters. You know,
I know
their
exactly,
sons.
and I'm a big fat hypocrite. But
but do you think we'll end up with charges against either man?
I think we will against Peter Mandelson. I think that one is more likely to succeed. I think the criminal investigation which is undergoing is going to, I think, have to be quite wide-ranging, and I think that everybody is well aware that if you hand it over to the Met Police, they've not got the best record in cover-ups and transparency. So I think that they're going to go all out with this one.
Indeed.
Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, no, I don't think so. I think we'll see him disappear off into the sunset, never to be heard of. That's.
I have a funny feeling he's very bad at not being heard of. Let's also talk. We're going to talk about the National Cancer Plan, which is an important story affecting an awful lot of us, increasingly as we get older and fatter. We're going to talk about that in the next half hour. But I want to talk also about yesterday vote in the House of Commons for the final second reading for MPs to vote on abolishing the two-child benefit cap. Bearing in mind, this is not that 20-odd quid that you get for every kid that you have. This is the £3,500 extra you get in the child aspect of universal credit. I'm explaining this for the benefit of the Reform MPs at the back of the room. We had this battle with Sarah Pochage, didn't know what it was. I'm not entirely sure that Nigel Farage knew what it was, but it's the £3,500 extra that you get for each child above 2 children, which was basically a very popular policy brought in by the Tories to basically, you get it for the first 2 kids if you're on universal credit, but you don't get it for any more. Labour have basically said children are in poverty. All the charities club together say children are in poverty. They're in poverty because their parents don't work, or only one parent works part-time. If they both worked full-time, like, by the way, most other parents now, or they didn't have 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, then their children would not be in poverty. They have made choices, they are poor choices, and they're expecting the rest of us to fund those choices. Bearing in mind also, very large percentage of those who are in need of this benefit, we're told, are from Bangladesh or from Pakistani heritage. Many of them actually born in those countries and are now living here. I'm not sure that's a good use of our resources. I'm old-fashioned that way, and the public largely agrees with me on that. Reform yesterday got a bit of a muddle over the vote in the Commons, though, because Labour voted obviously to scrap the two-child benefit cap and then told everyone how wonderful they were because they were curing poverty. Nigel Farage has dropped his support for abolishing it, instead calling it to be retained to fund support for pubs because he wants to keep pubs. He was in this muddle where he was in favour of it and everyone was going, this is not a popular policy and it's a few billion quid a year. And then he dropped it for saying it would only be for British families, not for foreigners. Seems reasonable to me. I don't know why we're giving a benefit to any foreigner in the country. I wouldn't expect benefits if I went to France or America or Bangladesh. And only for those who are working. Because some of these people are working, the vast majority are not, certainly not both of them working. Bit of confusion in the Commons last night at the vote, though, because the 2 latest Reform MPs, Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, accidentally walked into the lobbies, so they literally walked down a corridor, walked into the lobbies with the Labour MPs, apparently on the phone to Nigel Farage or whoever it was to say, which side are we voting on? We don't know what the policy is. And they ended up voting with Labour to scrap the child benefit cap, even though the official reform policy is now to keep it.
I was getting updates last night around this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's proper nerdy. When you go through the voting lobbies, you now have to swipe your pass. So you can't do it accidentally. You have to do it deliberately. So there was some argument that they had done it accidentally and they hadn't gone through.
And they tried to get out.
Apparently allegedly tried to get out, so their vote hadn't registered, but it had because they'd swiped their pass. So it wasn't a mistake, and they were busy on the phone. But it does beg the question: their chief whip, Reform's chief whip, it's your job.
Who is it this week?
Lee Anderson.
Yeah, Lee Anderson, you didn't do your job properly. At the end of the day, let's not pretend that most MPs going through the lobbies when they're voting are literally going, which side am I going left or right? They literally have no idea about any of these.
No, the whips will usher them into
in the right direction. But no one was there to do that. As Kemi Badenoch quite amusingly messaged after this, saying, well, you know, they're Nigel Farage's problem now. Anyway.
I did quite like that.
Anyway, it's quite a bit of fun. 10:26 is the time. We're going to take a break. I want to hear from you. Should Keir Starmer publish everything he knew about Mandelson's links with Epstein? He appointed him as US ambassador. A lot of this stuff was already known, and yet he still thought he was the right man for the top diplomatic job.